Welcome to the Cybercast. This week, I can't actually play the keyboard and talk at the same time. I'm just learning. I couldn't be one of those like jazz hotel guys that speaks and plays the piano at the same time. I think you have to actually be good at the keyboard for that. But today, I'll do my best. Today, we are looking at some of your kind of cyberpunk themed games. Kind of cyberpunk, neon punk. Some of them are minimalist. Definitely a bunch of games I've put together for kind of aesthetic reasons rather than gameplay genre reasons. Every week on a Thursday, I spend 2 hours looking at games you've sent me. And talking about design as we play them. What the designers could do with them. Making suggestions. Sometimes I make helpful suggestions, sometimes I make less helpful suggestions, which is why our chat here is so valuable. Now I used to send an email out to every developer letting them know when their game was going to be on the show and stuff like that. I realized that was my that was like a lot of effort on my part that I had to do every week. Because I had to kind of customize it and stuff. And also, it didn't encourage people to pay attention to the channel. So I thought, I'll just stop doing that. So hopefully we'll get some of the developers of the games in this week. Hopefully they've looked at the theme that's coming up. I should have really listed the games here on the description of the stream, which I haven't done this time. So I'll try and get on top of that with the next couple of streams and make sure that the names of the games are at least listed in the top of the screen. I will go back to the VOD later on and add links to these. So if you want to play any of them, there will be links available. And yeah, if you've just joined, we're in cyber mode today. We're going to Cybertown. This is my Cybertown theme tune. And we've got something called Cyberrunner, which is a relatively sort of minimalist looking prototype. Just turn my cyber mode off for a minute. And we've got Cyberrunner, we've got NeoBall. So a couple of games that are using this very sort of minimalist aesthetic to just sort of play around with pure movement. And then a couple of games on Steam. We've got something called Cendovia Uprising. Let's go back. Sorry, I've got too many things open. We've got CoreRunner, which is really giving some Tron vibes. An action TPS on light blades. This is the one that I'm maybe most excited about at the moment. Cendovia Uprising, a turn-based strategy game where you battle to conquer Cendovia. I like turn-based strategy games. But I see lots of different screens for lots of different things. We've got like a world map. We've got dialogue. This feels like one of those games that's had a lot crammed into it. And it hopefully the core strategy combat gameplay of this one is good, because otherwise I'm going to be saying, why does a game where this isn't developed have this? And all the stuff that I always say of like, why has this got so much stuff in it? So we'll start off with the I.U.T.K games, because these look a little bit kind of simpler, more stripped back. And let's see what the developer says on this one. You're a ball going through different worlds, each one more dangerous than the last as new challenges arise. Observe and react quickly if you want to survive, because everything around you wants to stop you from rolling forward. Demo with 3 levels. My aim is to receive feedback in order to improve the game and to develop 4 more levels. One of the things I would say immediately, one of the things I would say about this one is I've reviewed a game like this before on the channel, And if the developer hasn't seen that video, then I suggest they watch it. So Neon Punk is more Tron than Cyberpunk, right? So this kind of thing where you are purely in the simulation is what we would describe as Neon Punk usually. Cyberpunk is a little bit more social and a little bit more grounded. But it's an aesthetic description rather than like a hard line genre difference. But yeah, developer of NeoBall, if you haven't watched my video about Sphero yet, please watch that, because one of the things that's already jumping out at me here is the description of the game is saying you're a ball. And I have never played a successful roly ball game where there wasn't some sort of fiction about what this thing is, rather than just you are a ball. You know, Rock of Ages, Katamari, all of the successful roly ball games have some sort of character or fiction attached to the fact that you're a ball. So I think you're always going to struggle to appeal to people if you just make a roly ball game and sort of present it as, yeah, you're a ball, deal with it, you know? So let's check these two out first. We've got Cyberrunner and NeoBall are the itch.io games, and they are just finishing downloading. So let's check Cyberrunner out first, because it won the race. It won the download race. Morning, everyone in the chat. Thanks for joining, as always. Appreciate having you here. Right. Free running. So what's the developer said about this one? First-person speedrunning game. Complete the obstacle course using grapple points, jump pads, and momentum-based movement suite. Made for the Cyberpunk Game Jam. One of the first game jams I competed in or took part in was the Cyberpunk themed jam in, like, I don't know, like 15 years ago or something. Okay. I think there will be a certain amount of the audience that are tolerant of a game where you're just a ball or a, you know, something very abstract, but we'll see. An Unreal Engine game. I know that because my camera has died. Right. Please do set your graphics settings to default to a lower setting. I say this because you will make your game a lot more accessible to a lot more people, because if people have the game set on a low to medium setting and then start the game and it runs better than it needs to and they want to turn the graphics up, that's fine. But if you freeze people's computers on their first run through, then you're going to be in trouble. This looks nice. And the city kind of looks dead, right? There are no lights on in the city or anything, so it feels more post-apocalyptic than a cyberpunk setting at the moment. But I guess it limits the distractions. Right, we seem to have a bit of a dash with the shift key. The jump feels quite low. There's quite a nice motion to the character. They feel very robot-y. Don't think you're supposed to do that. Let me just check the itch page for this, because the jump isn't very far and I cannot see. I cannot see any information about how to increase that jump. Yeah, you need some context clues here. You don't necessarily need a tutorial for a game that's at this stage. You definitely need some context clues for what I'm supposed to be pressing to do these things. Right, that's a neat mechanic. That feels pretty good to operate. Okay, so I'm jumping with space and dashing or air dashing with shift. That's a boingy. Nice. Was there a tutorial level? Oh yeah, there we go. Thank you. Press space to jump. Failure is part of the game. You can manually reload by pressing R. Space twice to mantle. There's no fall damage. Press shift to dash in any direction. So we have a dash, and we have a cooldown for the dash. We don't necessarily have like a have an indicator for the cooldown as far as I can see. Oh. Hold control to slide. Ah, now we're talking. Not a very nice sound to use for the slide. I get that it's a robot, but that is quite an unpleasant sound. But I do love a ground slide. I might even go as far to say if you make an action game in first person and I can't slide on the ground, then I'm not interested. Okay. Don't have much space to make that slide. Jump. We're sliding in the air before we hit the platform. Yes, something like that. This particular set of actions doesn't feel massively fluid. Right, this platform says hold slide. But am I supposed to hold slide in the air as I read that, or as I touch the floor? Where am I holding slide? It's like it's good that the information is in short kind of nuggets. That's generally a good thing to do in this kind of game, but you can see I'm missing some piece of information about where to do something here. And I can keep experimenting to find out which way to do it, but the actual information presented is not really helping enough. Oh. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any combat in this. It's just a free running game. Goodness sake. Hold slide while landing to preserve forward momentum. I keep pressing it just before I hit the ground. I can't... Right, I'm going to try and not slide at all. That's the sound for when you land without sliding, okay? I think I'm air sliding before I actually hit the ground, and I can't really tell... I need some sort of tell of when I'm about to hit the ground to know when to press shift to do the slide. Because I'm pressing it prematurely and I can't seem to tune myself to... Just can't get that timing right. It's like trying to perform a parry but you can't see the thing that you're parrying, you know? So I'm going to have to just look down at the body to... slide? I'm not sure. That one was premature. Well, dashing and sliding... are you supposed to use control to slide? Ah, yeah, okay. That makes sense. Right. There we go. Thanks, Stanley. That's what I needed. Though I will say, the amount of effort to insert a symbol for some of these moves, instead of repeating the name of the move, would be a relatively small amount of effort, so... Oh! Everything in this feels pretty good once you get it working, though. Like, this is the sort of experience that I flat out wouldn't play on a keyboard, out of choice. Just do not associate keyboards with playing action games whatsoever. And I know there'll be some hardcore PC FPS people who are like, what? Mouse and keyboard makes you better, mate. Yeah, I don't care. It also doesn't make me feel like I'm having fun. It makes me feel like I'm doing an office job. There we go. That felt a bit fluky. The hook mechanic feels amazing. You sort of pull towards it. You don't swing around it. You pull towards it, then you let go. And because it's not a physical thing you're hooking on, you keep your forward momentum and pass through it. And that works fine with this setting. I had this issue with Twisted Tower when we played Twisted Tower when Thomas Brush put out the demo of that, where there were these hooks on the ceiling and you swung up to them. And the game really needed to make you let go of them before you hit them, but it gave you the sensation as if your character was smashing their head into the ceiling. And it was really unpleasant, and that was actually the main thing I didn't like in that game, to be honest, out of all of the stuff. Okay. So, we can slide now. These are quite unforgivingly small for the first set of platforms. Oh, it's one of those. I think these are maybe a little bit, they could do with being a little bit prominent. So what I would do, because you've got the neon blue on the platforms, is take that pink from that building over there and make your jump things pink so that they just pop a little bit more. I'm sort of having trouble noticing them. So, I'm going to compare this to Blood Thief for a moment, because I really do think Blood Thief is best in class when it comes to these kind of movement games at the moment. And I think one of the problems I'm experiencing, in terms of like first impressions of this game, or I just went backwards, is that a lot of the failure feels like you're failing to stick the landing onto like a relatively static thing that's very small. Like you're trying to derive all of your difficulty from these objects being quite small. And that means that failure doesn't feel very good because you just sort of pass by stuff. And if you were to compare this to something like Blood Thief, in Blood Thief a lot of the deaths, you sort of are careening around corners, you're bouncing off stuff, and then you overshoot and it feels like it's your fault, and it's kind of funny because it's got this over-the-top slapstickness, whereas there's something a little bit disappointing about trying to jump on these tiny platforms and falling past them. Maybe it's just a bit too early in the game for it to be that kind of fiddly. I think maybe you just want to give people some more wins early on, because it... Yeah, I don't know. Each individual mechanic here feels pretty great, so I think most of the issues I'm experiencing are level design issues. So I think I'm supposed to slide on that, but again, I think we need downward slopes to tell us when we're doing a sliding bit. Even if the downward slope doesn't matter that much mechanically, because there's nothing about that platform that really tells me that when I land on it I need to slide to get to the next, and that's what I needed to do there. There's lots of places where you need to like slide to preserve momentum onto the next thing, but because it's a flat platform, there's nothing to really communicate that. So if I wanted to make that a lot clearer, I would... I mean, maybe... I don't know. I don't want to, like, redesign the game in my head, but some of this, it feels like it would be better if there were sloped platforms that automatically put you into a slide. Because that experience of, like, landing the jump and then realizing you were meant to slide after the jump and then basically just having to jump up and kill yourself because there's no way to progress. That doesn't feel like the fun kind of failure. Forgot that was up there. See, that's when I respawn, that's kind of above my line of vision as well. That's a weird one because it looks like I'm supposed to swing over it. Yeah, you need to remember that the whole players don't look up thing, because I've forgotten to look up there several times, and I should have it in my memory that that's what I'm doing, but... Right. Jump, swing, swing, slide. Yeah, it's... I think a problem I'm experiencing is that this is not satisfying to learn. I'm not getting... Like, I stumble through each section a little bit, and then when I finally make it, it's like, oh, thank God I made it, next bit. And then I stumble through the next bit making mistakes. And the failures don't feel particularly fun. And I think the window for success is just too narrow for the start of a game like this. I think you can make it that narrow later on, but I think you need to give people their wins a lot more early on, because it's just going to put people off. And I know there is an audience for like super hard, precise things, but yeah, personally, a lot of this is kind of... It feels like, you know, the developers got super good at playing it, and now they can't really objectively judge the difficulty. So they've made something that would be really good as the end game of a game, but coming in as a new player, I'm just like, I don't really feel inspired to want to get good at this. Like, I know I probably could get good at it if I played it a load, but whether I will want to invest that time is another question entirely, you know. Ah, there's one. There's one there. This is fun. Oh, we're doing pinball. We're doing a pinball bounce. That was fantastic. I know I didn't really have any control over that, but that felt pretty fun to go through. That's very strange. What am I supposed to... Okay. That pushes me down. Am I supposed to slide up this? A lot of the physics of this don't feel super intuitive. Okay, so I I jump into that, it pushes me down, and then I use the downward momentum from that to slide up that. That is like very unintuitive in terms of the physics of it. Yeah, if the dev of this catches the stream, do take a look in the chat, because there's some really helpful feedback, general kind of direction stuff about what this game is trying to do, and maybe parts of it that are conflicting. The problem with this type of game for this type of stream is it's very hard to analyze it and do any of the gameplay at the same time. I just simply can't operate these controls and think at the same time. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does make it hard to comment on it, because commenting is death. So yeah, I'm going to try this, whatever is going on here, I'm going to try it like 3 more times, but I'm going to stop after that point, because I think it's fair to give an honest sense of like how an average player, and I am an average player, I'm not I'm not terrible at these games, I'm not particularly good at them either. So at this point, this is where my frustration threshold would have me going, no, I don't really want to learn this game, right? Because, there's no reward in a game like this except getting more of the game. And so far, it's just been pitched a little bit too hard at the start for me to want to progress through it. There's no sense of anything else in the game to reward me for getting good at that activity. So, Cyberrunner. This game looks lovely. It looks gorgeous. All of the core mechanics feel pretty good. The hookshot feels pretty good. There's some very unintuitive things going on with physics here, and I think the one I would really draw your attention to is that one where the vent pushes you down, and then for some reason that momentum is meant to carry you into a slide which goes up a ramp and onto the next thing. Now, some of that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in real physics. It doesn't make sense in the established physics of the game. So there's lots of points where you're having to stop and work out what to do next, which means that this isn't a reactive game, which doesn't work with the momentum system. Like someone in the chat just said this. It's very strange to have a game with this momentum system, which is then based on like lots of precision, right? And again, Blood Thief, best in class for this. It has combat, obviously, but even if you just took it as a speedrunning game, you can do the level and just complete the level reasonably easy, right? Like, if the first level of Blood Thief, I could complete it in less tries than that demo, but the challenge of the game is really doing it in a particular way so that you do it much faster. And this is a game like that has a very, very narrow window of success, a very, very narrow criteria for like what you need to do in order to advance. Chris said this looks like a prototype over a fully fledged game idea at the moment. Yeah, and I think it is. And I think, when you've got a game at this stage, it's a good stage to be in, because you can get some people to play and go, right, what about my game is getting people, what is not? There are certain things about the feel of this that feel pretty good. The art looks wicked. I think if you want to stay away from combat entirely and you want to develop this a little bit more and keep making a free running game, then I would think the thing that jumps out at me thematically is that this background is like, this isn't cyberpunk type stuff, even though we've got all this neon aesthetic. This is like end of the world type stuff. This is all, the lights are off. There's no one alive here. We're a robot in a big desolate Wall-E type world. So if I wanted to add a bit more theme to this, I would make it like, you're trying to get some sort of data package or something through this world to save the world in some way, and you need to do it quickly. And if you're going to have this very desolate looking background, I would think about how you could have some destruction coming into the gameplay. So I don't know if anyone ever played. It was a racing game where which racing game was it? It was like as you were driving along, buildings were exploding and falling down and making ramps and stuff like that in the background. I think if you could incorporate that sort of slightly more apocalyptic feel into what's going on around you, then you could also start to have some more organic level design. Because the problem is when I see all these floating platforms, from a personal perspective, I think of like Only Up and those types of 3D platformers where everything in the game is just positioned to give you a frustrating challenge. It's not even pretending to be a real place. And there can be a benefit to that because you can make things really precision based and really, the more abstract your world design is, the more you can focus on skill. But I really think this would benefit, or these mechanics would benefit from this feeling a little bit more like a real place, having a little bit more of a Blood Thief or Mirror's Edge type approach to the level design where, you're running on buildings and stuff. And if you do go down the route of like, the world is destroyed or being destroyed, then you can do stuff like having buildings that are tilted like this that you slide down for a long time and all of that kind of stuff. But it feels like the abstract platformerness is there in order to give us these very annoying frustrations of like having very small platforms to land on and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just want to be able to get into a bit more of a fluid flow of running and jumping over things in this type of game. And what you've done is you've got checkpoints that are very close together, and then there's a jumping puzzle to get between them. And once you've nailed that jumping puzzle, you're on to the next checkpoint, and that jumping puzzle is done. I would like to feel like the checkpoints are 4 times as far away from each other, but the stuff you have to do in the gap is a bit easier. And then instead of it being about totally understanding exactly how to do this jumping puzzle perfectly, which is what most of the jumping puzzles are here, I would prefer that you kind of made me wait much longer for a checkpoint, but made it much more forgiving in the gap, right? So maybe we have multiple paths we can jump along. Maybe we just have larger spaces we can land on, and it's just a bit more forgiving so that we can keep more of that forward motion. Because at the moment, you've got a momentum system, and you're sliding and trying to preserve momentum and stuff. But really, the space between each checkpoint is very, very small. And it's just a matter of dying lots of times until you learn the jumping puzzle so that you can start at the next checkpoint. And it makes it feel like you're playing like Celeste or something in first person, rather than something like Mirror's Edge, which is what would be better suited to the set of mechanics that you already have here, I think. But yeah, the mood of the environment is really cool. I quite like it. I would really encourage you to push away from the cyber theme. Like everything here is fine, but this is not a dystopian city with people living in it. Look at it, right? This is like that weird apocalyptic dreamscape that you get in Inception, And if we were running through this and some of these buildings were part of the platforms, and the platforms we could slide down them and things were like exploding and falling in the way and stuff like that, then you'd have a really neat theme that still can use your robot. It can still use this like howling rain and dubstep and stuff. But you start to get a theme there, and you start to get a story of why is this robot running through this environment? Well, everything's being destroyed, and they need to get this MacGuffin from A to B, and they're the last hope of anything to survive the big thing that's going on, or anything like that. At the moment, we're just we've got a lot of cool mood, and it's the music choice and the art style is quite evocative, but it's not really playing to anything apart from the word cyber being in the title, which is not enough for me. So, hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you get some ideas from that. Let's check out NeoBall. Like I said at the start, I think when you make a game where you control a ball, you've got a couple of different routes for it. You either go down the route of making a big deal about how it's a ball and almost making a joke out of it, like making a pinball game, or you need a thematic reason why it's a ball, like it's a magical ball, or it's a robot that just happens to be shaped like a ball, or that kind of thing. Because otherwise it just looks kind of cheap and lazy. And, you know, if you've watched my design by constraint video, I need to link these when I put the VOD up. If you've watched my design by constraint video, the point I make there is it's okay to make creative decisions based on what you can and can't do. You know, it's okay to make a game where you are a ball because it's easier than making a game where you're a character or whatever. But you still have to find a way to make that something appealing to players, because players don't operate on sympathy. Players don't operate on the principle of like, oh, it's a solo indie developer. I don't care if they just did this thing. It's because they don't have any resources or what. People don't generally care about that. So I'm just making a note of some stuff I need to add to the VOD description later on. Designed by constraint video and the Sphero review, because I talk about this quite a lot in that. There have been good games where you play a ball. They usually have quite a good thematic justification for why you're a ball. Moving with WASD, jumping with space, camera with mouse, restart with R. And this already is alarm bells for me, because when I think of rolling ball games, I think of like more you're moving the environment and the ball moves in it. Whereas with a WASD movement in a ball-based game, this really starts to get into, okay, this should be a character in a character platformer, but we've just made it a ball because it's easier type thing. I can move the camera with the mouse. The ball has a lovely texture. So like some sort of onyx egg kind of thing going on. And I can fall down a hole. Chris, that's a really good question, and I'm going to answer it when we've played this for a little bit longer. It's a question I'm actually writing a book about at the moment, so that's fun. I've been thinking about this a lot. Am I supposed to jump over there? Am I supposed to jump that way to start off with? This is a really nasty jump to start me off with. I don't know why we're getting so many horribly difficult game beginnings here. There's a tea light. It's like a little LED tea light. Like for when you want to electrocute yourself in the bath. Right. I am a rolly ball. Interesting aesthetic. I quite like all this plasticky, soft-edged cube thing. It's running a little bit jankily for me, and I think it's because there's so much of this smoothness that maybe doesn't need to be there. And there's also like these splashes of color, like that pink over there and over there, that magenta type color, that make it look like that's something really important. Because if I look at the visual design of this, that pink really stands out, and it's not important. It's just a random bit of scenery. Right, can I jump that far? I don't know. I haven't done enough jumping yet to learn. Okay, I can jump reasonably far. I don't have a good sense of how far the jump is. We've got an annoying one of them. There's a very light sound effect, but we don't really have much sound design in this yet, and that's fine. That could be added later. But yeah, I mean, it's already kind of starting to hit the issues I had with Sphero, which was one of the first games I had on the channel last summer, which is like, it doesn't feel like being a ball is... It feels like being a ball is a development constraint rather than a design choice, right? We haven't made a game about being a ball because it's gonna make players have fun in a particular way. We've done it because that's just a easier way to make a game. And the thing is, when I think about rolling a ball, what's fun about rolling a ball, I think of much more of a Marble Run, Sonic type situation where we're rolling down lots of tubes and really getting into what it means to be a ball, the essence of ball. Sphere is the essence of ball. Ball is the essence of round. That's quite annoying. You can just sort of get stuck on that. These light things are quite distracting for... I don't think they're actually doing anything. I think they're cosmetic, but they feel like they're drawing a lot of attention, and I can't work out if I'm supposed to pay any attention to them. They don't seem to have any purpose. They look nice. Like they've been positioned in such a way that makes them feel like special things that you should go and bop. And I will bop them, even if the game doesn't require me to do so. There we go. You're getting bopped, mate. Bopped by a ball. The new Chuck Tingle book. Oh. Oh. I don't like being pushed into a violet pit by a phallic protrusion. I like how this looks. Generally, I'm a fan of the visual style of it. I think there's a lot of stuff in it that's potentially distracting in a not good way. And I think there's a certain approach to this that, in terms of the kind of challenge design or what we're doing with the ball, again, it just feels like something you should do with a character, and it's not really getting into what I think is fun about the idea of being a ball. We get some nice kind of momentum when we're moving between puzzles. It's almost like the moving between the challenges in the game, to me, just feels a lot more pleasant than actually doing them, which is maybe not great. We've got to climb up these cyber candles. Live, laugh, love cyber candles. Coming soon to a plastic 80s boudoir near you. They've got those little nubbin on the top of those candly things that make them hard to sort of use as a element you're supposed to actually climb on top of. I'm not having a good time here, folks. I've also gone a colour, and I don't know if the colour is significant in some way. Yeah, I think mainly when I just imagine piloting a ball in a game, I almost want the game to be structured like a skate park, you know? I want ramps. I want tubes. I want to do a half pipe. Like these controls, moving from place to place, getting to open it up a little bit, like make the ball feel like a vehicle for swerving and stuff rather than making precision jumps, because all of the precision stuff in this is just frustrating and not enjoyable. The most enjoyable moments of this game are when I'm doing the thing that the game isn't meant to be about, which is just going from place to place. And that some of that will be a taste thing. You know, I've said plenty of times on this channel, I don't play games to be frustrated by a hard thing. And there are people who do play games for that. There are people that love things like Bennett Foddy's games and stuff like that. And personally, it's just not something I go to. It's not something I go to games for. If I want to be very frustrated with something being fiddly and difficult, I go to the supermarket and use the self-service counter thing. The one in Aldi is particularly bad. There's about 10% of the stock in the Aldi supermarket has been weighed incorrectly and put on a system with the wrong weight. So the self-service always throws an error on every object you scan. And the emotional experience of doing that is very similar to playing a game like this for me. So I'm aware that there is an audience for just very difficult precision-based games. And I would never say, oh, you shouldn't make this game. But it does make it hard for me to give feedback on it, because I see a neat little, quite a pretty environment. I see a pretty little ball that's quite fun to roll around. And then I see it just being used for something that doesn't use the best of those qualities for me. You know, I would love a game with this aesthetic and this core movement if it felt more like a skate park, if it felt like a snowboarding game or something like that, rather than playing. It feels a bit like I'm playing a character platformer, but the character is drunk and doesn't really obey my controls properly. And when you pitch it like that, imagine playing Crash Bandicoot, but Crash Bandicoot ignores a tenth of your commands because he's had too much of the island booze. Tony Hawk's Pro Baller. Putting the ball back in baller. But yeah, I mean, I hit the wall with these things very quickly of just not wanting to keep trying at it, because the game is rewarding you with more of itself. You know, get past this bit and there'll be more of this, and it's just like I don't particularly want more of this. And that's not to say that you can solve that problem by sticking some coins in or having unlockables or something, but I don't really, you know, it's you're supposed to feel the satisfaction of overcoming a challenge, and it's a challenge that comes out of fiddliness, precision and fiddliness, which, again, this is personal stuff for me, but those are not things that I enjoy exercising in a game a lot of the time. Some of my favorite games are about being careful, but, you know, being careful in something like Spelunky when there's loads of other stuff going on is very different from being careful in a game that is, you know, games like this and getting over it. They feel like the equivalent of, what are those toys called where you have to move the hoop around the electrical circuit and not touch it or it buzzes at you. It's like the video game equivalent of one of those type things for me. And that's a fine skill to test, but I just don't. I think on its own, as the main thing of a game, it's just not enough for me. I need there to be exploration or some other element that is there to kind of reward you or test some other skill at the same time. Because just dying a bunch of times because you're not precise enough, again, it just feels like. It's just appealing to a type of fun that I don't gravitate towards. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm getting better. I think the checkpoints here, it takes me so long to get to that next pusher that by the time I've got there, I've sort of forgotten how to handle it. So some of what I'm experiencing here it's not as reaction problem as much of as a sort of short-term memory problem for me. Some of that will be streamer brain because I'm talking, but yeah, once I get here, I kind of forget what's coming. And then making that jump and landing it, you have to sort of be able to make the jump before the tube comes out and then land on top of the tube. Like, again, I think with these games where the whole goal is to be ultra hard, I think you just need to ease people in a bit more. If this is your game and you're set on it being this, and you don't want to take any of my sort of feedback about, you know, I'd prefer this game if it was a skate park rather than Mario, any of that stuff, and you want to keep making this game in its current format or the previous game in its current format, then you just need to ease people in way, way slower and sort of recognize that as the developer, your understanding of like how to control these mechanics is way beyond what 90% of your players will have when they start playing the game. And you just need to maybe ease people in a lot slower than you have been and treat what you've currently got as your end game rather than the start of your game. Ooh. Oh, oh, oh. It's a little lift, little elevator. That was fun. I liked that. Ugh. See, some people will turn the corner and see that and go, oh, this is great. It's getting even harder. And I just go, don't make me do any more of this. Oh, great, they get smaller. An elevated ball. Is that like elevated horror, like Midsummer? Oh, look. It's okay, guys. I've unlocked the real game. The real game's down here. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the rollerball game, but it just needs... You need some theming of why you are playing a rollerball. And it needs to definitely need to be a ball. And what I mean by that is your level design and what you're actually doing with the ball need to feel like something where being a ball in this game is the obvious choice for the player rather than just an easy choice for the developer. Because at the moment, it just feels like a character platformer where the character is drunk and has a lot of sort of momentum and doesn't turn when you want them to, right? And again, it's that there are two pathways in front of you. One is you think, oh, actually, balls are more fun when they're in tubes and ramps and stuff like that, and you go down that route of making it more like a marble run because marble runs are cool. And you really lean into the fact it's a ball and it can move on slopes in particular ways and stuff like that. If you don't want to go down that route and you want to keep it as it is, then just make it a lot easier to start with because you're, you know, when you're starting off a game, you want to learn how to do it. You want to feel good about yourself. And I don't think most people want to just be brutally killed over and over again in order to learn a game right at the start. And there is a type of person that does like that sort of thing, but I think there's a reason why the games in that genre that have done really well have a kind of goofy presentation as well, I think. Like Getting Over It, Get Up, these are all games that have a kind of funny, anarchic presentation to them, and that works really well with, like, I don't know, watching a streamer rage out over this game for like an hour and a half while they get stuck on this one point. So the art direction you've got here looks kind of sleek and like it's supposed to be a serious game, and that doesn't, for me, that doesn't fit very well with it being like a precision rage game type thing, which is what it's doing mechanically. So you need to think a little bit about the relationship between the aesthetics and how the game feels to play. Yeah, it feels like it's supposed to be a rage game. So someone had a question about, a really broad question about game design that I thought was cool. And Stanley already answered it in a good way and said your perception evolves as you do. Yeah, this Chris said, a philosophical question. How do you keep your perception of what is a good game up to date? As in, if we suppose that people's attention span is shorter now compared to 20 years ago, 20 years in the future, we wouldn't know what is interesting to the future gamers. Asked in the context of checkpoints being too close in the previous game. Yeah, okay. So I have a different perspective on this from a lot of people. I know a lot of people that give out development advice on YouTube are coming more from a business dev. They're coming from like a biz dev or marketing background. So there's a lot of talk about like, if from that perspective, right? A good design is what makes people buy your game and not complain about it on Steam. Right? That's what good design would mean for those people. And I'm not necessarily putting it in scare quotes because I don't agree with that. What I'm trying to draw attention to is that judgments about what is good design, what is good filmmaking, what is good music or songwriting, these are always subjective. And a good starting point is to work out what you're trying to do, right? So if you're trying to just sell as many games as possible, then your concept of what is good design is likely to hinge on that, like what makes other people happy most reliably, right? And if you go down that route, then game design should be relatively easy to learn because you just need to pay more attention to the games that you're copying. And the problem that I see happen quite a lot on this is people don't do that. So, you know, the game we just looked at and a game I looked at a year ago, Sphero, both rollerball games. And if I were to go and search for famous video games where you play as a ball, where you play as a ball or sphere, and then we just sort of look at them, they just have a lot more theme to it, right? Games about rolling a ball around, Super Monkey Ball, Katamari, Rock of Ages. These are all games that have a really strong theme to why you're playing as a ball, right? So if we go down that route of like good game design is just kind of copying things well so that you have the best idea of what people are going to like, then you can at least start with, okay, what does a game of this type normally need in order to be good? And in order to ascertain that, you just really need to pay attention to the types of games that have been successful in that subfield before. And, you know, there are so many games that I get through where it's just like people have tried to make a game in a genre and they've done it all in their head. And they've never like loaded up the three best games in the genre and actually taken notes, right? So they go, oh, what's a Metroidvania? Oh, it's a platformer where you explore all this stuff and you unlock some abilities and da-da-da-da. And they're piecing it all together in their head. And they've never really gone back and analysed the games they like in that genre to really understand what makes them work. So at the basic kind of like wanting to sell games type of game dev approach should be really analytical about the games that have done well in the past. But in terms of that broader question about like, how do you keep your own sense of what is a good game up to date? I don't think you do. I think people who create things are engines for creating particular types of things, right? And studios are like this as well. So, you know, Arcane make particular types of games, and that is because they have game engines that can make Dishonored and Prey, and they don't have a game engine that can make an RTS. So they have technical reasons why they make a particular type of game, and then they have taste reasons why they make a particular type of game. They have things that they are interested in as a group of creatives and things that they are obsessed with. And even it's like solo developers have the same deal. You are an engine for making a particular type of thing based on the set of skills you have, the set of resources you have available, and your tastes of what you think is good, right? So I think you could make a totally out of date type of game, and if you really believed in that thing and you were really trying to like bring back an out of date game type, and you did it well, and you thought about how to fix problems that that game had the first time round, then it would have a good chance of doing well, right? Like, look at Blueprints. Nothing in Blueprints that has done well or connected with people could have been predicted in the way that like marketing gurus try to, because it was started like 10 years ago. And if someone then said, oh, I want to make a semi-procedural Myst-like that is crossed with a card drafting board game, people would have gone, well, where does that fit in the market? And it's like, well, it doesn't. It's just an expression of what the designer is interested in, right? So I don't think you do deliberately try and keep up to date with these things. I think it's fine to have your own tastes, and I think a lot of design is that. There are certain universal principles you can try and learn and apply, but most of those are to do with UX and player psychology. They're not necessarily to do with fun and taste, and you have to have your own taste and your own position on, what you think is fun. And I think games where the developer hasn't got that or hasn't articulated that, and they're just trying to chase what they think other people like, always feel a bit hollow, and they're very rarely are those the games that do particularly well. So yeah, that's my rant about that. And if you want that rant in the longer form, I'm writing an entire book about it, about how to identify your own design philosophy, and how to make sure the games that you make are an articulation of that philosophy rather than just random projects that use up a year of your life that you never get back, So yeah, two ideas of what good design is. You've got the kind of universalist, good design is what people like. So in order to understand that, I should study the games that exist. And then you've got the more subjective, art-driven side of it, thinking good design is what I like. Because that is what you mean most of the time. If you say this is a good game or this is a bad game, you're phrasing it as an objective statement, because that's what we do, and that's fine. And I wouldn't say, I'm not one of these tedious people that says when you make a subjective claim about things, you must phrase it as a subjective claim. No, screw that. Say this is a good game, this is a bad game. But you are making a claim about what kind of design you like and what your values are in terms of game design. So like, I don't like grinding, for example. I don't like games that grind. And I can make all sorts of like pseudo-ethical claims about how, it's better if games don't waste people's time, and I don't want to see people putting loads of hours into a game when they could be doing something else with their life. But personally, I just don't really enjoy doing the same thing 10 times without enough variation to justify it. Like, I don't mind if a game has some progression grinding going on in the background that sort of happens by accident while I'm doing something interesting. But the kind of old JRPG model where you go back to an area that's kind of redundant and kill the same enemy 10 times because you're waiting for a drop, I hate that. That's part of my principles as a designer, and those really just come from understanding my own taste as a gamer as well, right? So the games you produce are going to be a mixture of the constraints that you have creatively and technically, and then what you think about games will kind of fit into that. And I think if you follow all of those things, if you make the game that is within your wheelhouse technically, and which is a clear expression of your tastes and your values as a designer, then I don't think you can go really wrong. I think most games that fall flat and don't feel particularly good are because the person making them is like trying to hedge their bets and make what they think other people want them to make and all of that kind of stuff. Don't take any of that as business or life advice, but I think generally speaking, that's how I see a lot of these things. And I think it shows through in a lot of games that we get on this channel as well, generally speaking. The games that feel like they were made to satisfy someone else generally do not feel as strong. Let's check out CoreRunner. This is the first-person Tron-looking game. We're doing some ice skating. some cyber ice skating. And I can control it in the menu, which is quite nice. I can jump with space. You are a prisoner of the core. Anything red is an enemy. That was cool. The way that the thing went through me. Survive long enough to escape and kill anything in your way. Am I doing a snake? Is my tail a snake? Can I go through it? To use your trail effectively, you'll need speed. Find the dash upgrade. Okay. Thank you for the little arrow. I needed that. I wasn't going to be able to find anything without that. You now have the dash upgrade. Press shift to use it. I missed that last tip. Is that that's... It's only red things that are enemy. Okay. You now have the shield upgrade. Press E. Ugh. I really have no idea why people make games of this sort and don't release them with controller. It's so strange to me. Okay. So, can anyone else see a potential problem here to do with the relationship between the game mechanics that are happening and the way that we use the camera in this game? Because I'm already starting to see a bit of a problem, but I want to see if anyone else gets to it first. Yeah, so my trail, I think, does have an impact on the stuff bouncing into it. I can destroy stuff with my trail, but my, you know, ability to understand that that is happening is very, very limited by the camera. So, I mean, we've got this radar in the bottom right that seems to be just there because the developer thought there should be a mini-map, but it doesn't really have anything on it, right? And if that had the line, and it, you saw that one exploded because of my trail, right? If that minimap had my trail on it and the thing's getting destroyed or something, then I would at least have some sense of when it's happening behind me. But I can't see what's happening behind me, and that's a problem because some of the gameplay relevant information is what's happening behind me, right? I think this kind of skating movement It feels okay. It would feel pretty good for a kind of typical Mario Kart racetrack scenario where I'm dodging things that are already there. I think trying to dodge things as they appear using these controls doesn't feel great because the turning angle is quite shallow. So like dodging things you can already see, not too bad, but I don't know, they're all translucent as well, which is making it hard to kind of read the environment. And you know, it's kind of getting its difficulty from visual noise rather than anything that's that fun to have to pass and make sense of. Okay, patrols approaching. So are we going to get a different wave of stuff happening now? I really like that we're inside a big sphere. That feels really cool. It's a nice kind of thematic tie-in to whatever the Tron kind of business is with this game. Oh. Yeah, that's kind of... So you have to slow down to turn sharp, which is kind of what I expect from a driving game, I guess. But, yeah, this is much more like Tron light bikes, but without the 90-degree turns, this bit. And I guess that's maybe why we didn't start off with it, but... It feels a bit more forgiving than the overwhelming Cylinders of Death section that we had before. Uh-oh, Cylinders of Death are back. That's great. Are there any, I wonder if we have any camera choice. Oh, there's an attack button. What is the heel beam and why do I need to do it manually? Right, there's no button here for a heel beam, so... Why are you telling me that heel beam is available and not telling me how to use it? Hmm? I think what will you have that shield that kind of you have mastered the trail kill, excellent. I think the shield would work better for me if it was like you click the mouse and or whatever button and it just appears very briefly and you can like deliberately ram through things with it, because at the moment it appears for a set amount of time and then it has a cooldown and everything. It's more like a panic button rather than something you actively use as you're driving around. Is that the heel? What's... Yeah, I mean, Ginevra had a question about color blindness for this. There are simulators you can run things through. Like, you can take a screenshot of the game and put it through... there's also them on the internet you just upload an image to, so you can take a screenshot of your game and just upload, and it will test it with different types of color blindness and show you. Okay. I think the pacing here of unlocking things is pretty good. It feels a bit weird to have the katana on my mouse click, because my mouse doesn't actually do anything else. Like, my mouse doesn't control the camera or anything, so... But that's fine. I can remember it at least. I think if you compare this to the first two games, like, I don't think this game is massively sophisticated, right? What it's trying to do is like give you variations on a set of things, and you know, give you gradual unlocks so that doesn't get boring and stuff like that. But the thing that I can feel in like spades in this game compared to the first two games is that this is designed to try and give the player a good time, right? Rather than to give the player a difficult thing to do. And I really think starting from that idea of how do I give a player a pleasurable experience late, and then adding challenge into that later, I think you're usually just going to have a stronger core game if you start from there. If you start from trying to make something challenging and then just hope people enjoy it, I don't think that's... I think a lot of the time that's not a great place to start. And I think there might be something psychologically about programmers that means that they tend to go for massacre designs and, you know, not understand that that isn't necessarily fun for a lot of people. Because, I think learning programming is a slightly masochistic thing. You have to do a lot of trial and error, you have to do a lot of failure, it feels like banging your head against a wall. And I do wonder if there's some sort of link there between the types of people who make games and the types of games they tend to set out to make straight away, and how unfocused that tends to be on, you know, just giving players a pleasurable experience from the get-go. Double guns? Yes, please. Bertha, the jam in August, the whole point of that is that the music will be submitted by artists. So you are making a game that serves as a music video for their song, right? So you're not teaming up and making a new song or anything like that. It needs to be a song that already exists, and ideally a song that the band wants to promote and stuff like that, because they've got it on Bandcamp, they've got it on Spotify, whatever, wherever they've got it. And the game is like a music video for that song, right? So you don't need to team up with them. They don't really need to do anything except submit it, which is why I put that video out yesterday, because we need the artists to submit their music throughout July, so that when we start the game jam in August, whether you're working on your own or with a team, you'll be able to just go through that library of music and pick something from it, right? And then the aim of it, in terms of like kind of creative learning, I guess part of the aim of it is, because you're making a game for someone, you then have to do be thoughtful about what the kind of aesthetic of that artist already is, and, you know, the mood of the song and all of that kind of stuff. So if it's an established artist that has a few music videos and stuff already, then you'll be taking inspiration from, you know, well, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but when we get closer to August, I'll take all the music that's submitted, I'll tidy it all up and put it in a big Google Drive with, you know, everything named properly, lyrics files for people that need them, and all of that kind of stuff, so it's easy for the jammers to access and decide what to do. Should be fun. And again, I just wanted to make sure that we're not just running random game jams that don't do anything different, and that there's like something that people can learn from that they might not learn in another game jam. I learned a lot about creative direction from making games using other people's IP. Because you can't just do what you want, you have to meet them halfway on their kind of brand or whatever. So you wouldn't, if you got a chance to make a game for gorillas, you wouldn't just make up a bunch of your own characters and not make it about gorillas. You know, it's that kind of thinking. Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll have some sort of judgment criteria where, you know, there'll still be a best gameplay type award and stuff, but yeah, there's nothing to really say that the game has to be super interactive. But I think challenging people to try and make an interaction that fits with the song in some way, which will be part of it. Yeah, I guess. But it could also be just like a kaleidoscope thing that responds to you moving. You know, it could be really simple movement visualizer or something like that. I've done stuff like that before, like just programming psychedelic tunnels for things and stuff like that. I don't have a lot more feedback on this particular game, and I know the next one is a strategy one, which is going to take a little bit longer to learn, so I'm going to probably stop this one now. But I think this is pretty strong. I think it introduces the mechanics in a way that is nicely paced. I think on this gun level I can't then switch back to the katana, so it does feel like each mechanic that's introduced is like a gimmick rather than a set of tools that you use together, because I don't have my katana anymore now that I've got guns. And that's a shame, because I think being able to choose which thing to use would make it feel like the player was playing more expressively in this, of like a particular play style. It's like we go, there's a katana level and then there's a shooting level, and I don't know. I'd like to see those things stacked and get used together. But yeah, I think the camera stuff feels a bit difficult. What's on the minimap feels quite inconsistent. There's certain things that are shown on the minimap and other things that might need to be on the minimap that aren't. And I would maybe just experiment a bit more with the cameras on this one. Try it with something where they're pulled out a little bit more. I definitely enjoy the light bites type part of that game more than the Pillars of Doom, because they're translucent. You can't. Sometimes they appear. I think maybe they just need to not be allowed to spawn when you're too close to them as well, because some of the turning away from them was just a little bit too strict. Yeah, Brainoid, exactly. That's a really good example of like having enemies that need different approaches, so you have to use your katana sometimes and your gun other times. Okay, Warp Drive Games, Cendovia Uprising. Again, I said at the start, I'm always a bit wary when I see a game this complex and I see text boxes and all of this, because it feels like that kind of kitchen sink. I've made a game and it needs to have all the things that a game has type approach. And maybe all of these things will be decent. Like the UI doesn't look great. The UI looks a little bit ropey and standard. Maybe it will be decent to play and to think through as a strategy game. But when I see all of these elements, I sort of prepare myself for disappointment, because I've seen games like this so many times, and you know the core gameplay puzzle doesn't feel great, and then it makes me go, why did you add this? Why did you add all this other stuff before you kind of tried and tested this? But that's just me giving a. This is nothing to do with this particular game, Cendovia Uprising. It's just a gut feeling I get when I see games that are in this kind of state, because it's got lots of parts to it. None of them look massively polished from the screenshots, and that makes me feel like we're going to get like a grab bag of game development stuff that maybe isn't ready yet. But let's take a look. I mean, it's still a demo. It's not out yet. But yeah, I'm always a bit wary when I see strategy game with dialogue as an indie project. Right, campaign mode. Cool. So we're going to have a standalone versus NPC mode, online mode to play against other people. Is this the right development order for a turn-based strategy game? I think if I open up a demo for a turn-based strategy game, it would probably be more promising to me if we didn't have a campaign mode yet and we were playing the sort of sandbox mode and just focusing on the gameplay and getting the gameplay right. Right. The trailer was going away in the background there. Let's take a look. I just don't really want to be bombarded with story in a game like this. I want to just try the core gameplay and see how it feels. Campaigns, factions. Why is there so much stuff? I don't want there to be this many factions. Even if there is that many factions, they should be hidden at the start. Yeah, I think we're just going too broad with the aspirations of how much content there is in this game. Loads and loads of characters, loads of stuff that says unavailable in demo mode. And personally, like, just thinking about this game as in the long term and what this game will eventually end up being after it's finished developed, I would be happy if the amount of choices and options I can see here was like quarter or even less than that, but everything was a bit more polished. The UI was a bit more polished. Everything like looked a bit nicer, because otherwise your game just looks like it's going for size and scope and breadth rather than quality, you know? Like Invisible Ink didn't have this much stuff in, and Invisible Ink is a kind of tactics game that is really, really polished. And I don't know if you would call Clay an indie company anymore, but they certainly started off as one. And yeah, I know I'm doing a lot of preemptive naysaying on this game, but all of this stuff matters for your first impressions. It matters for a player's first impression, and then when it comes to design, it sort of gives us an inkling of the developer's priorities.
I suppose.
We could have been that free if our plan had succeeded. Our underwater utopia.
Well, it succeeded in getting us banished, kid.
Hey, old man. I was 18 when we met. You were only 25.
I know. You're not a kid anymore.
About time you noticed. So, well, if you were as free as those dolphins, what would you do?
Honestly, I'd go inland, try to find my wife.
But Titus...
I know. I'd probably be captured before I ever got close. And even if she survived the war, she'd probably reject me as an awful blue freak. Not exactly the man she married anymore.
Don't call yourself a freak. We're improved. Evolved.
Nami, I never wanted to be this monster. My stupid experiment.
First a kid, now a monster, eh?
I didn't mean...
It's okay. I kind of like being the monster.
I didn't mean that. I just didn't want to be alone anymore. That's why I let you drink that concoction. That's why I agreed to form the Aquatic Isolationists with you. Loneliness.
You're not alone. After 10 years here together, I would think that's obvious. And at least we don't need to run anymore.
I wasn't running from my life like you were, Nami. I blew up my life. Once I did that, the damned fishermen wouldn't stop hunting for me in the sea. How was I supposed to ever make it inland?
I wish there was a way to pause this so that we could have some mid-commentary. That voice acting was reasonably good. That was too long. And there were little bits of exposition there that would have been okay on their own. If we had like 2 things exposed to us in that intro, but there were just too many things. There were like 5 things. It's like, oh, we're fish people now. Oh, we're fish people because I did this. It felt like it was too much of an expository conversation that only existed to tell the player what's going on. And the dialogue and the voice acting was quite naturalistic, and they felt like characters who could have a real relationship. But the problem with that is when you do that, then you can't have an expository dialogue like that, because then it starts to feel like a conversation that people would never have, right? So they're having this weird heart-to-heart that ramps up in intensity really quickly because they need to tell you all of their backstory, right? So some really strong points there, some really weak ones. Let's click on Laguno to attack. What's going on here? This feels like a map that... Right, so we've got like a 4x type map. It's telling us who is controlling each area. And then I'm going to click here and we're going to go into some zoomed in combat. Laguno is home to Centovia's only major port. Given its strategic importance, the aquatic isolationists guard it fiercely. Harness wave power to fund your mission. Camera training. We're using A and D to rotate the camera, are we? Is that what we're doing? Okay. To win this battle, you must destroy the enemy leader Spike before they destroy your leader, Nami. Oh, I'm literally fighting my fish boyfriend straight off the bat. Round 1, your turn. Okay. You're not going to tell me what to do now? I've got stuff here I can do, but we've gone from it teaching us how to use the camera to now it's like, oh, yeah, just get on with it now. Do what you want. Coral. Can I put Coral there? Coral's deployment costs you 2 tokens. Deployment costs can be seen at the bottom of cards of your hand and also in the upper right-hand corner of full cards. Hover over an item to see its full card. Enemy troops can be healed while Coral is on the battlefield due to her heal blocking ability. Okay. Thanks, Coral. I appreciate your heal blocking ability. This camera is really... this is kind of doing that thing of like... It's been designed from first principles rather than what people who play this genre of games would expect, kind of thing. I don't know why we need a camera that we can just rotate around a fixed point. There are games where this would be totally the right choice. It feels very strange here. Titus. I just want everyone who's got a bazooka, thanks. Titus Rage Stat allows you to shoot enemies within 3 spaces horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Cannon attacks can go over anything except walls. Cannons cannot be occupied... These tutorial steps, I haven't made an attack yet. I haven't made a single attack. And you're telling me all of this information. You're telling me 3 different statements about what cannons can do. I haven't just clicked a cannon and I'm getting ready to fire it. I've put a guy with a cannon on the field. This is not the correct time to tell me this information. Select a card from your hand to play it. Okay. How do I get people to do stuff? I don't understand the phase order of like, when am I playing cards and when am I doing stuff with characters? Coral normally can only move horizontally and vertically, but troops can unlock 8-way movement by reaching the enemy's back line. Okay, so we've got some weird chess mechanics that are just like abstract things like, when you get to the back of the thing, you can move in 8 directions. How does this fit with this being like a pseudo-realistic, like, tactical game with rendered characters that look like people? Why do they get 8-way movement when they walk to the back of the field? That is a kind of rule you can have in a chess, like in an abstract board game. In a game like this, it needs to have a thematic reason. You can't just say, oh, I want to reward the player when they get over there, so now you can move in 8 directions. That doesn't make any sense. By advancing your leader 1 space, your troops can now be deployed 1 space farther. Deployment level is relative to the leader's current position. Right. You need to onboard me into what's supposed to be fun here, because you've just told me a bunch of stuff and nothing fun has happened. I've been able to deploy some characters, which I don't care about because I don't understand, you know, why I would want to deploy them in one place rather than another. I've been told lots of things and not shown anything. And the camera is now centered on a entirely different place that it's decided it wants to focus on. Oh yeah, I can sway the camera with the right click. Okay. Look, I just want to make someone shoot someone with a gun. Okay, here's all the little moves down here. Have I got anyone who can attack? I can put him down. Right, so it costs tokens to play cards. I can't see where the token currency is that I'm using to play them. Tokens 48. Right, so that's a resource that is so large as to be meaningless. So I'll just play everything. And maybe that's a decision where they want the you know, they want you to be able to do a lot more in the tutorial, so they don't limit you so much. But I feel like, yeah, I don't know what's going on at all here. Okay, I've put a bunch of stuff on a grid, and now I end my turn. Maybe next time I'll get to hurt something. This is rough, guys. I'm not having a good time interacting with this. Right, Nami, activate your shield. Coral, activate your shield. Oh. Tidus. The kind of tone of this feels very sort of Saturday morning kids adventure show, with the names of the characters being like Coral and Tidus and stuff. When do I get to attack someone? Why are characters talking to each other? You haven't taught me how to do the basic combat yet, and your characters are talking to each other. How do I just... Right. Blow that up. So we had a talk this week about onboarding and how tutorialization and onboarding are sort of related but not exactly the same thing. And this game has some tutorialization. It's telling me how certain things work. It's not doing a good job of onboarding me into what is supposed to be fun about what I'm doing here, right? So it feels like, again, if we think about what is the developer trying to achieve here, well, it feels like what the developer is trying to achieve is the illusion of a video game, right? There's all this stuff, and you can do this and all of these other things. Like, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? Because at the moment, it's like you've given me all of these mechanics. It's maybe going to be like Into the Breach, but way less charming. It's maybe going to be like any number of grid-based kind of tactical combat games. I've been playing for 10 minutes. I haven't had a chance to attack anything for a while. And part of that is that so much has gone into making cutscenes and doing stuff to make it look like a bigger video game. And what we really need here is some proper onboarding design. Like, why have I got this set of options down here with like 10 things on? Like, why is there so much stuff here? It's like you want the illusion of complexity on the screen so that people think that the game is going to have loads of stuff in it. And I don't want that when I'm learning a game. I want the game to be... I want the first, like, half an hour of the game to to be much more streamlined and just show me the things I need to know exactly at that moment, and then allow me to do them a bunch of times so I can learn how to do them. Like, at no point in that tutorial was I shown how to attack. I had to just work it out for myself. I was told loads of irrelevant things about how a guy's gun worked and stuff like that I just don't need to know at this stage, because you haven't even shown me how to attack. I think I won that because I beat their leader, but I wasn't even aware that's what I was doing. I was just shooting at the only person I could shoot at. I don't want to do a dialogue tree. I don't care about talking to characters, because in order to care about a story and a wider world, I need to enjoy doing the basic activity of the game, and you've just given me a really unenjoyable experience with that first combat. I won it by accident. Right? I don't know how I won it. Water, okay. What's the tooltip for water? A tooltip for water appeared and I can't get it to come back. Landlocked cards cannot enter water. Corrodable cards that aren't amphibious take 1 damage when landing on water and at the beginning of every turn while touching water, but not while on a portal. The water increases movement range by 1 for cards with amphibious property while also giving them temporary 8-way movement. Amphibious resources have double productivity. Water prevents and cures illnesses. Only amphibious troops can be healed while touching water. Do we need all of that in the tooltip for water? No. I think that's information that you learn by, you know, I learn about amphibious resources when I have an amphibious resource. Yes. I just need to know it's water, and then when a character has something that synergizes with water, then it should be on them, not on the water. Like, there's also just a weird mix here of, you know, we've got a really cool place. This environment is cool, but it's a mismatch between how abstract the gameplay is and the play area. And the mix of, like, having these characters that feel like real characters and then putting them on a chessboard. It's just such a strange mix of things to me. It doesn't work. It's like it's like the gameplay wants to be halfway between XCOM and Marvel Midnight Suns, but it's overcomplicating things and not focusing on being streamlined. Amphibious drone. It can do construction. Oh, I can add a barrier, but I can't do it on the board. I have to remember what direction each direction is, because what on earth? Okay. Are you building a barrier there now? Are you going to do that? Okay, that's fine. You do that. Lots and lots of content and mechanics and stuff here, but just really need to go back and to the drawing board and just refocus on making this a lot more streamlined so that you're not showing people so much stuff that they don't need to know about at any given time. I love the Hitman, yeah, Hitman Go. The thing I really like about that game is that it sort of still feels like you're engaging in some of the same ways of thinking that you have to think to play regular Hitman. You know? The Tomb Raider one's like that as well. It's just like I'm playing this really minimalist experience, but I still feel like what's going on in my brain is Hitman-y or Tomb Raider-y or whatever. Yeah, I really wish people would start from like trying to make things simple and elegant first, and then add the complexity in once they've got something that works. Because a game like this it ends up feeling like a mess, and it ends up feeling like a mess that's going to be hard to fix. Because we've added so much stuff in that's just like cluttering everything up, and maybe not providing any sort of gameplay value for hours into the game, at which point I won't be playing because there's so much other stuff that will have put me off at that point. Hospital portals and torture portals. Because Shelley, the healing amphibious berserker, can do these things, apparently. A lightning cannon shot. I don't understand why I click on my characters and they've got moves. And then I've also got these cards down here. These are like universal spells that I can use anywhere, maybe. But look, she's doing it now. She's doing it. So why is that lightning cannon shot in my inventory rather than related to her as a character? I don't... The whole UX of this is very strange. It feels like it's not based on anything. There's lots of cobbled together concepts from other games and no real kind of sense of... I'm going to beg him. I can beg him. Okay, I can't do that because the menus are broken. Again, too much complexity, too many things in the game at once. You get all of these silly little menus and stuff, little bugs that shouldn't be there because you focused on the illusion of a large video game rather than a solid, tight proof of concept. If you're watching this and you want to make a game of this sort and you like tactical games, what I would urge you to do is go and play XCOM or Into the Breach or I don't know, Invisible Ink. Any of these games, preferably more than one of them, and see what they do in their first level. And try to just make that first level of that game. You know, almost clone it in terms of the UX and how things are interacted with and stuff like that. Because it's very rare, particularly with a game, with a complex game like a strategy or tactics game, it's very rare that it's going to be better for you to design your own UX and interface and everything versus just copying something that is established. And the thing you have to bear in mind, right, is that the established thing that you could copy by Fireaxis or whoever, it's not just that that's tried and tested, it's made by someone who's done that job for 20 years, right? So even if you don't understand why it works the way it works, it's probably going to be better than you just guessing. And this feels like guess-driven design, a lot of it. They're trying to shove me out of the arena. Everyone's shoving me because they don't want to. They don't want to shoot me point blank with their bazookas. Only return to Taurand when you are ready to die. And then we've got subtitles here, but we didn't have subtitles in the voiceover bits. Let's get out of here. Edit deck. I had a deck? Is that what those were? They didn't feel like cards. Again, you don't have the proper UX for cards, right? So nothing is kind of coming out and animating like a card. The reason we use cards in video games is because people understand them because they look and feel like cards. And that gives them a mental model of like, okay, there's a set of cards here and I don't know what's in... Well, I know what's in there, but I don't know what order it's in. And as I draw the cards, they go here, and that's going to give me random things. I know I sound like I'm stating the obvious and being patronizing, but there is a reason we use cards in video games, and it's that people have a mental model of them. Just putting some rectangles on the screen is not a deck of cards, right? You have to animate them to look like a deck of cards, otherwise people will not understand that that is the metaphor you are using. And the benefit of having that metaphor will then go away entirely because they don't see cards, they see rectangles.
Get him out.
Let's look at first level of invisible ink. My next video is Limmy. My next video is always Limmy. That's just how my YouTube works now. Right. First set of interactions in invisible ink. First set of interactions you're asked to do. What can we see on the screen? We can see the action points of the character. We've got a character thing down here. It's very easy for us to join the dots that this is him because there's no one else. We've got an end turn down here. There is nothing on this screen that is not relevant to what we are doing right now.
Get to the door.
Direction. Get to the door. Simple instruction. The thing you're doing exactly now at this moment. Not get to the door and then open the door. Doors are portals that you use to transition from one room to the next. This door is not locked, but in the future you may experience different types of doors, some of which may be locked. Occasionally you may see a window, which is like a small door for cats to go in and out of. There's none of that. Just get to the door, right? Approach door. Direct, clear instructions with nothing else fighting for our attention.
We don't have visibility on the hallway. You'll have to manually check for hostiles.
You have to do X. What's on the screen? The thing we need to click in order to do X. What's not on the screen? Anything else. Right, and I know it sounds like I'm being uncharitable because the games we look at on Indies Under the Knife are unfinished, right? And I get that. But I'm always going to be more charitable to games like these two on itch because these are sort of prototypes where it's just, hey, check out the gameplay of this game and let me know what you think. And that's fine. When someone sends me something like Cendovia Uprising, it's like I'm gonna be a bit of a diva here. When someone sends me a game like this, it tells me that they do not actually watch the channel or pay attention to anything I say on this channel, and they see this channel as a vehicle for them getting their game shown to people and having some marketing. And that's understandable, but if you'd watched more of the channel, then this game wouldn't have a bunch of these problems. And I get it. You don't have time to watch loads of YouTube. This is why books are good. You actually get more information more quickly from a book than from watching 20 hours a week of a YouTuber. But I feel like there are so many things that are wrong with this game that we've covered on the channel over and over and over again. And if this person was a regular viewer, then they would have caught these things. And, I put a video up last week and I got told off by people for saying, you shouldn't say you hate games when it's someone just trying their best. And I didn't actually say I hated the game. I said that this is the type of game that I hate to see. So the overpolished prototypes video that was about Arcane Drifter. I didn't say I hate Arcane Drifter. I said I hate seeing games in this state, which is much like the game we just looked at, much like Cendovia Uprising, a game where the developer has, instead of testing a proof of concept for a core mechanic and making sure that that is fun and makes sense and people can understand it, just gone balls to the wall, making something that they feel like ticks all the boxes for things a video game should have. It needs to have additional modes. It needs to have all these content variations. It needs to have like a full-blown tutorial that is also a story. It should have a story and characters. Slow down. Stop doing all of that stuff. And if you do make a game of that sort, there is no point sending it to me, because I will just say all of this stuff again. Like, get a proof of concept of a core thing that your game is about, and that could be story. But you know, people who make games with good story that is like baked in from the beginning, that's like the main thing that the game is about. It's not a story and also a strategy game or something like that. It really takes a very experienced team to be able to pull all of that off at the same time, which is why Invisible Ink is not Clay's game. It's like their fourth or fifth game.
Get him out and be careful not to alert the guard. Decker's tools should be in that safe. He'll need his neural disruptor to take down these guards.
So the character is telling us exactly what to do. There's nothing on the screen that we don't need to see or know about right at this moment. And we're getting little bits of story flavor by the kind of quest giver character telling us what is happening in the mission, and like, you need to go and get this object and stuff. So we're getting a sense of what our goal is as a character. And when we need to do something as a player, then we are told just directly do this thing, right? And it's all about cutting down the signal to noise ratio so that all that is on the screen at the moment is what's relevant. And even look, I know it's partly because this is a noir game, but all of this black around here, there is a central focal point where the game is happening, and anything that is not important is either not there or it's in the corner or something.
Good. Now approach the guard from behind and neutralize him.
Right, and we get a little pop-up that explains something. Right? And maybe we rush through this and we click continue. But I imagine that the way that this is designed, it's in an encyclopedia somewhere so we can access it later on. Right? But this is the first point where we get a complex thing to read. And it's after we've done some fun stuff. We've snuck up to a door, we've looked through a door, we've moved around a bit, we've got to whack a guy. And before the game presents us with any more complex information that is like more than a sentence long, more than a single statement or command, we've got to do something fun, right? And what happened in that last game, if you kind of think back to my first attempt at making a move in this game, it was like, I'm putting the chess pieces on the table, and as I do it, you know, I put the rook on the table, and the game tells me the rook is a castle. The castle can move in all these directions. Castles are made of stone. And it just tells me loads of stuff that's just not relevant right now. This is stuff that, if you play games and pay attention to what is happening in them, will seem painfully honest to you. But I think part of the issue that we have, and that we see time and time again with stuff submitted to this channel, is that learning a game engine and learning a programming language, those are very time-consuming things. And that means generally that a lot of people that are capable of producing games at a technical level do not really have the weight of experience when it comes to just understanding the basics of like good game UX and stuff like that, because they haven't thought about it. They've spent the last 10 years learning C# or whatever. So this is one of the reasons why in larger studios, design and programming are different functions, because you can have a designer say, this is what is happening in the game. And then the programmer, like, they still have to work out how to engineer that, right? So having these multiple layers of problem solving of like, what is my player experience? What do I want my player to think and feel as the design stuff? And then also having to work out how to engineer that within your software. That is actually difficult. That's very, very difficult. That's a very complex set of problems for one person to have. So I empathize. And I know I've had people on this channel reach out before and say I'm too negative about technical stuff and programming. I'm not. I'm very respectful of people who can do that. But I do believe that the time sink that goes into learning programming for a lot of people means that they are not good designers. And this is why some of the strongest entries on this series since I've been doing it have been like someone who is an artist or a storyteller, and then they've put a game together and they've just done the basic programming that they can do. And because they are focused on something experiential, like how something looks or the emotions it evokes for someone, a lot of the other game design stuff just falls into place because they're thinking like a designer rather than thinking like an engineer. And the problem that we get with the engineering approach is you often just get this like, right, what does a game look like? Oh, it has a menu, it has this, and this, and this, and just trying to go from nothing to full AAA looking video game in the space of a year, and just not really starting from first principles of like what kind of pleasure is the player supposed to be getting out of this, and have you built a prototype that tests that idea before you add all of this superfluous stuff to it.
Brutal, but effective. Proceed to the next door. Close the door to cover our tracks. If they catch us, we'll lose uplink again.
It's also really funny that when you like, I another criticism. I'm just gonna sound off a bunch today because we're already in that area. Another criticism I get on this channel is that I use too many examples from high indie or AA games, and it's like, well, that wasn't made by one person, so how is that relevant? A lot of the time, when I show you things like this, it's like, look how little is here. Look how minimalist it is, right? It's like, it's not even a matter of there is more work. There is more thought gone into it, right? There isn't. This isn't better because there's more stuff on the screen and there are more features. It's better because there's less stuff on the screen and there's less features. It's not a matter of how much hard work and resource and man hours have gone into it. It's a matter of how thoughtful they've been about it. And again, that's what design is. Design is being thoughtful about what you're doing. This one's like a real-time tactics game, but I think it follows some of the same principles. I've just I've got the edge of my screen is cutting off, but I don't know if you've played Bad North. Look how little is on the screen at any given time. Yeah, exactly, Seamus. Yeah. It's such a weird cope. Like, I totally understand that every game that does well is subject to some degree of sort of survivorship bias, right? So you can't learn everything you need to learn from successes, because successes have a bunch of like luck bound up in them and stuff like that. But in terms of just looking at the object and going, what makes this good? You totally can and should do that, and that is what the majority of people just neglect to do. Again, partly that is because you focus so hard for so long on learning the technical aspects that you forget to play games and actually take them seriously. The other one is just trying to copy things from memory. So you go, oh, what happened in that game in the tutorial? And you just sort of guess rather than going back and actually playing or watching it with a notepad. You totally can learn from high-end examples. You can learn from things that are relevant to indie games from Blizzard games and from, you know, CD Projekt Red games. But you have to, like, you have to like not go into it with that attitude of this isn't relevant to me because I'm the little guy and poor me kind of thing, you know. So this is a bad comparison to the game we just played, because this is a game that clearly has set out to be as minimalistic as possible. But then let's look at Into the Breach and just think about the kind of relative. So Into the Breach versus the game that we just looked at last on the screen. And again, let's just think about complexity of like how much stuff is on the screen at any given time. So this is the mech that's currently being moved. Their information is down here. Stuff that we can't currently do is there but grayed out. And some of this, is not yeah, Novice in the chat said is, you know, sometimes you don't have a you just don't have any artistic sense. A lot of the stuff that is artistic sense is just a set of rules, you know? Like, what rules do we apply to make something look more important than something else? There's a set of visual rules here. When is something outlined in a hard black outline? That's the example I always pull up, but that's like a very clear example of a visual rule. The tiles don't have a hard black outline, okay? So we can notice that about the world, and we can say the tiles have a sort of dark grey-green outline, and the mountains have a black outline, and the buildings have a black outline. Why is that? What does that achieve, right? And we don't need any hands-on art skills to think about that. And then we can apply that same thing to the interface. We can say, okay, why is this button grayed out and this one isn't? You know, why do things have the particular border colors that they have and all of that kind of stuff? It's a set of rules. It's not anything to do with someone's hands-on art ability. Obviously, the quality of these individual sprites is to do with someone's hands-on art ability. But most of it is to do with rules and consistency, which anyone can see and pay attention to, right? I just completely lost what was in my head then. Look, these forests also don't have any black outlines. Why? Well, they're relevant information, but they're not something that you need to immediately focus on. Does this follow the 7 rule? How many things are on here at once? We've got like one set of information up here that we're not going to pay attention to very often. This gets grouped as one thing. We don't really have any information on the board at any one time. And when there is something, you know, the developers have made a really clear call about, right, I need to make this really, really yellow. And this was probably rounds and rounds of playtesting, right, before they realized that, oh, players don't know when that opportunity is there, so we need to highlight that opportunity in a big yellow thing. Yeah, I noped out of Into the Breach after a few hours. I think I played it through a few times, unlocked a few different things. It's very, very punishing because it's such a small board. It's very, very chess-like. There's a lot of like pushing characters into things and stuff, and it just means that each move has a lot of. It's very unforgiving, you know, in terms of what the moves do. Has anyone played Death Howl yet? I did a stream of Death Howl. I haven't played it properly yet. So yeah, that's a good question, Swank. So let's have a look. Baldur's Gate 3 interface. So this is where this kind of stuff gets tricky. So if we follow the stuff in Gestalt theory, which is what is used for graphic design and UI design, this one is what's going on here. I just want to find a good rendition of the interface that only shows that. So, yeah, the grouping is the big thing here. So when you see a really complicated UI like this, your brain chunks the information into sections, and if there's a group of things that are together that look the same, then you assume that they are the same thing. So these character portraits on the left-hand side, just up here, which my finger is getting green screened out. These up here, your brain interprets that as one thing. So when it's looking at the screen and trying to work out whether it can deal with the amount of stuff on the screen, it only sees that bar as a collection of faces rather than the individual faces. And then when you focus on it, you can then start to pay attention to it and go, okay, there's 4 things here and they're different, right? But they're kind of grouped. And then here we've got, okay, currently selected character. And this is the same portrait as up there, so we know it's the same thing, but it's in a different shape. So we've got one thing here. We've got this stuff we know is related to each other because it's put together. So these icons, even if we don't know their abilities, the fact that this portrait is here is probably connecting them for us, right? Then again, it's just all about thoughtfulness. It's like, why is this where it is? Why is this where it is? We wouldn't have the portrait and then the map and then the character skills afterwards, because the map isn't related to the character, right? So when you see good examples of it, you can look at them and understand why they are the way they are. But the thing is, if they're well designed, then it's also naturalistic that it's almost hard for you to think about because it's so obvious, right? It's only when you see a bad example you go, oh, why is the map next to the character's portrait? That kind of thing, right? And then we tend to have the end turn button over in the bottom right because that's where we associate with like finishing reading a page, right? It's the terminal place where your eye rests. So we would generally, in a left to right language, we wouldn't have the end turn anywhere on the left hand side, and we wouldn't have it at the top of the left hand side, especially because that would be the kind of start of the reading order for the whole page. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Kenny. Sometimes, yeah, if you try and copy something with a twist and you say I'm making this but with this, sometimes the twist can undermine the original thing so much that you can't copy from it anymore, right? I see this all the time. The taking a turn-based game and making it real time and then not accounting for players not wanting to read things that are moving around, that's a real one. I've played quite a few. I played a tower defense that was using cards before, and it was just like there was too much reading required for something that was moving around in real time, and all of it was like stuff that would have sounded good on paper, but as soon as you introduce that UX problem of, oh, I need to read 3 different cards and compare them while a fight is happening and I can't pause it, that kind of situation, it really kind of broke the design. So sometimes the twist, when you try and copy something and you go this but with this, sometimes the twist can really break things, and that's why you do it, right? The whole point of the twist is to be disruptive and to hopefully come up with something new, but that's why it's a gamble. That's why, it's easier to clone something and make a version of something with a different theme than it is to do a twist. The twist is a gamble. It's a gamble that can lead to you making something totally new. Whereas like the kind of, I don't know, if we think of the original wave of like boomer shooters and stuff like that, Hexen isn't mechanically any different from Doom or Wolfenstein. It's just got a different art style and a different setting. And that's like where the twist of the game is purely aesthetic and thematic rather than gameplay. When you put twists in your gameplay, you're just making a bigger gamble. And it's a gamble I encourage people to take because often you can't compete on just making a more polished or different themed version of something else because the something else you're basing your game on wasn't made by a solo developer. So I do think the sorts of people who watch this channel who are making good games, it is good to gamble on originality and trying to do something different, but you just need to understand it is a gamble, and that's why big companies churn out kind of reskinned clones of things because they don't want to make that gamble. You're in a good position to make that gamble because you can prototype something for a week, throw it away and start on something else, but that is like the exact opposite of the development methodology we see for a game like this, where it's just about cramming in as many parts of a video game as possible and then not really testing or polishing any of them and just ending up with something that feels really disjointed and hard to understand, you know? Right, I'm gonna wrap this up soon, folks, because I've got other stuff to get on with today. I hope you all enjoyed today. I felt a bit rambly today, but I guess there must be a section of the audience that are always hoping for that, right? It's like watching the kind of people that watch racing, hoping to see a car crash. I feel like that is part of the appeal here. But yeah, I think that, you know, the first 3 games, some solid ideas there. I thought CoreRunner was fun. I think the camera would be the main thing I would want to look at there. Color blindness is a potential issue. I mean, let's do the color blindness test ourselves. Let's do it. CoreRunner. So there we've got an image with the pink down the side. Color blindness simulator. You can load up a color blindness simulator. This is the kind of stuff that I should crop for shorts, but I just really can't be bothered. Drag and drop your file or paste it from here. Okay, here's CoreRunner. This is your CoreRunner on drugs. We're going to try it with anomalous trichromancy, which is a type of magic when you can control the number 3 and nothing else. That's red week, green week, blue week. Try these. Dichromatic. See, if I have red blindness, then the red reads as blue and the green reads as white. That's interesting. But the important thing to know is which one of these is the most common one. Because I know the red-green is way more common than the blue-orange one. But yeah, it's hard to make a game that abstract and colourful that isn't going to have some sort of problem with colour blindness. But I definitely think the minimap's a hard question here, because if you draw everything onto the minimap, then people just end up playing the game by the minimap, right? If you ever played Mario Kart on a DS, it's what you just end up looking at the map and not playing the game. But it did feel like it was almost pointless earlier on in the game because there wasn't anything on it. This one just needed to be way more forgiving and focused on keeping momentum rather than stopping and looking at the situations and then trying things and dying and stopping and looking at the situation again. It didn't feel like it made as much use of the momentum as it could. And I think if I were to start from a story point of view of a robot is running to race through a city, a derelict city, as it crumbles and falls apart, and deliver a thing to a thing, and then focus way more on fluidity and having a much broader window of success rather than these little rage puzzles of rage jump puzzles, I think then there could be something really potentially really special there, and the hook mechanic felt particularly good to use. And the ball, you know what, I like rolling a little ball around. I like how this game looks, but it's still suffering from that same thing I found with Sphero, where it's just like, it feels like this is a ball because you thought that would be easy rather than because you've thought about what is fun about being a ball, you know? And there's a few directions you can take that in. And my preference would be Cyberpunk Skate Park Marble Run rather than frustratingly fiddly jump puzzle game. But there are other ways of approaching that as well. And if you want to stick closer to this original design, then just make it easier at the start. Just put all of this as like level 3. Build 2 more levels before this that are just way, way easier and more forgiving, and give people just a chance to roll around and enjoy moving the thing rather than falling down. Also, make the kill distance from falling way, way shorter. And because I fell for ages before I died in that game, and it's quite frustrating waiting to come back. So yeah, and Canny, this is exactly why, like with that game last week, I said I hate to see a game in this state. This is the kind of game that I hate to see on this stream. It's not that I hate the game, it's that it makes me kind of groan for the developer to have spent this time making a thing, and it's just not really functional as a game, you know? It's like they're trying to create the illusion of a game, and they haven't really thought about what makes fun or anything like that. And it's frustrating because like you know, I'm going through this process at the moment of like rereading loads of game design books because we've got the Game Developers Library podcast, and that's what that's all about. And I understand why people try and read those when they're from a sort of hobbyist programmer background and it's too abstract for them. I get it. I sort of appreciate that that's a thing that happens, but I think maybe until you've been through the experience of like making this video game looking mess that isn't really fun, then it's quite hard to make yourself understand why you need the more abstract understanding of why is someone playing a game in the first place and what am I trying to provide for them, right? Because and to be fair, this exists in every medium, right? And I'll let you into a piece of the Joe Baxter Web deep lore here. One of the first jobs I had between the ages of about 18 and about 25, I was a youth music workshop leader. So I would do songwriting workshops with kids and stuff, and we would like write raps and things like that. And there's this guy that I used to mentor for ages, and he had no sense of rhythm, and I couldn't get him to understand a sense of rhythm either. And everything he wrote was like, it just sounded like nonsense. It was a bunch of just really, really oblique metaphors. And I knew this guy for years and years after I'd been working with him as a youth worker. I knew him for years. And he just never got out of whatever mind state he was in that made him produce that stuff. And he kept showing it to me. He kept, because he looked up to me and he was like, he wanted me to co-sign the thing he'd done. So he'd send me all of these songs he'd made, and they would all just be someone with no attention to rhythm, no desire to make a pleasurable sound, just saying stuff. And the stuff he was saying was totally nonsensical. And I'm not talking about nonsensical in a fun way, like MF Doom or something like that. I'm talking about just someone who is so desperate to be perceived as deep that they are just making this big word salad. And eventually I would say to him, like, you need to stop sending me stuff because I'm never going to respond well to what you're sending me, because it feels like what you're trying to do is show people that you're intelligent in a particular way. And that's not what anyone listens to music for. People listen to music in order to relate to it or feel particular things. And what you're trying to do is impress people with your intelligence. And that is not what music is usually a vessel for people to do. It may be in certain circumstances, like people who play guitar like to listen to certain very technical guitarists and think about how skilled they are. But most of the time, when people are consuming any sort of media, they're not doing it in order to be impressed by how much work or how much like virtuosity the developer or the songwriter or the filmmaker has. They're doing it in order to feel something for themselves, right? And it happens across all media. People get into doing something because they want to impress people with the thing they can do. And if you never push past that point, you're never going to make anything successful, because like working, right? Doing anything for money is to some degree trying to find the middle ground between the thing you want to do because you enjoy doing it and the thing that other people want enough to give you money for, right? And with game development, the bar for what people are willing to pay for is really quite high, because you know, you could say, oh, I'm gonna make my game $5 because that game is $5, and it's like, well, that's actually a $20 game on sale. And you can't compete with something like Hades on price. So you have to compete on originality and like having some soul to what you do, and also just caring about what people are supposed to get out of it, rather than, you know, the amount of work you put in and the kind of the whatever thing you think is cool about your game because it took you a long time to do, because that's not actually what results in good gameplay, you know. Thanks for the tip, Boss Grand. What is my favorite game genre to play? I like turn-based card games. I like the last few things I've played a lot. I've been playing Blueprints a lot. I like games that I can play at my own pace and where I'm not having to like react too much to things in real time. Although then there are action games I really like. Like I love Blood Thief. That was a game we played a few weeks ago. I think with action games, I just like them to be focused on providing a particular type of experience, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard to nail down a genre. I think actually what I would say, Boss Grand, is that there are games I like in every genre, and the games that I do like within those genres, it's usually because they do something special within their genre rather than liking a whole genre, right? So, you know, I don't particularly like FPS games. I quite like playing Overwatch, and I like playing specific characters in Overwatch because of, like, you know, when I play Hammond, I get to be this weird troll that like spoils other people's games by smashing into them and stuff like that. So I think most of the games I really like are actually like outliers in their genre. You know, like Spelunky will always be one of my Desert Island games, but I'm not particularly attached to platformers as a genre. It's just a platformer that does things I like, you know. Do I like Potion Craft? I don't think I've played Potion Craft. I need to look at it. It looks like something I could like. Although I skim read that to say fart growth, where it says fast growth, and this would definitely be more my kind of game if it had a fart potion. Yeah. I think it's hard not to like try. If you're sort of invested in having a whole career making games, it's hard not to want to try everything. But I think games where the whole appeal is being difficult are probably my least favorite thing. It took me, I was like 10 years behind on Dark Souls because people only talked about it in terms of difficulty. And there's so much other cool stuff to like about Dark Souls games that isn't just that they're hard and you die a lot, but it was just the only way people discussed it. It's the same with Blueprints, like people just talking about how difficult the puzzles are and stuff like that, and it's like there is so much more to get from that game. It is such a story and world building and mood driven game that isn't just about melting your brain. I mean, if you don't enjoy the puzzles, you're not going to enjoy it, but when people just talk about games in terms of, oh, this was so hard, I guess it's It's just a matter of like you've just achieved something and you want to tell people about it. But I find that quite frustrating. I don't know any other way to pronounce outliers. 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 Oh, okay. The liars outside. Yeah. I will not bust a freestyle, Maurice. Never. It was like mostly you'd get hired by a school to go and do like a traffic safety workshop, and it was like, right, kids, we're going to do a song about how you shouldn't, how you should cross the road properly. So yeah, I worked with small kids and teenagers for like most of the first part of my 20s before I went to grad school and got my PhD and stuff. So that's why I'm perfect for YouTube, because that's what you have to do on YouTube is pretend to be a kids TV presenter. Hi guys. Today we're gonna talk about your games and why they're all rubbish. Hey kids, cross the street. Don't use your hands, use your feet. If you die, it's not my fault. Crossing the road is a lethal sport. I don't think fault rhymes with sport. See you all soon, and maybe next time we can exchange crossing the road raps. We can have some freestyle battles in the chat.